Well, hello there. It's your friendly neighborhood Double D coming at you with, I guess you could call it some breaking news. I'd actually was going to do another video, but when this came up, figured I'd squeeze this one in and push that one out just a little bit. And what we're going to do now is look at something that's probably not a surprise, especially to many of you who are fans of the channel. But I think this is actually quite important. So let's take a quick look at this, shall we? All right, so this is actually Fox News. So this isn't quite CNN or anything like that. Um, but I was actually kind of surprised to see this. D&D causes controversy with rule change over identity. Some character traits have been divorced from biological identity, a New York Times report reveals. This is by Courtney O'Brien of Fox News. Okay, so they start by saying races are now species in the beloved game D&D, which recently marked its 50th anniversary, irking some loyal fans. More than a few, I would say. Some character traits have been divorced from biological identity. A mountain dwarf is no longer inherently brawny and durable. A high elf, no longer intelligent and dexterous by definition. A report in the New York Times explains. Now, that's actually a little bit more of news. It's one thing to have this sort of thing come out in Fox News, but it's another when it comes out in a place like the New York Times, which, traditionally has leaned very far to the left. And I think this Fox News article actually just kind of summarizes that New York Times one, so we'll just kind of stick with this one. And Wizards of the Coast, the D&D publisher owned by Hasbro, has endorsed a trend throughout role-playing games in which players are empowered to halt the proceedings if they ever feel uncomfortable. This is, of course, our old friend, the X card, which we know and love, but is actually fairly well-trodden territory by this point. We all know what that is. If something's happening at the table, you can just throw up the X sign like a wrestler who's been hurt, or a card, and just say, "Stop, DM, do not go on. I am a little narcissist, and you will bow to my will." The company also now suggests that extended D&D campaigns begin with sessions allowing players to lay out their expectations and which topics they wish to avoid, which could include a whole host of nasty things, but things that could come up in any sort of a game. What they're trying to do here is put up a signal flare to not only current players, but potential future players that this game is a safe, inclusive, thoughtful, and sensitive approach to fantasy storytelling, said Ryan Lassard, a writer and frequent D&D dungeon master, according to the report. I'm not sure why he is in here. The only thing I saw in him was he did a comic book Kickstarter. He kind of just looks like your garden variety, like Soy Boy. So I'm not sure why he was able to get his opinion in there. I think it's probably because he used to be a journalist of some kind, but oh well. Some gamers are frustrated, and here's where we strike back. It's an unnecessary thing. Robert J. Kuntz, an award-winning game designer who frequently collaborated with Gary Gygax, co-creator of D&D, told The Times. It attempts to play into something that I'm not sure is even worthy of addressing, as if the word race is bad. And I think they're talking here about the change from race to species. And it's one of those things that if they'd used species right from Jump Street, people probably wouldn't have even thought anything about it. But they kind of changed it to accommodate the whiners and criers and leftist kooks that they are courting for their customer base. So yeah, they are taking some rightful slings and arrows in that regard. Wizards of the Coast executives defended the new rules by saying players desired greater leeway in creating their characters. But some have slammed the attempt at a more quote-unquote inclusive game that some argue comes at the expense of the game's authenticity. In an X thread about the new Wizards of the Coast Player's Handbook and DM's Guide that analyzed D&D's origins in the 1970s, users blasted Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro for distancing themselves from the game's original creators due to their apparent insensitivities. We've been over this, because Gary wasn't perfect and he liked to tweak the noses of radical feminists, and let's face it, who doesn't like doing that, huh? They have sort of softly demonized him, and it is up to us to come to his defense, and we have done so. Sometimes even when his own family, not all of his own family, Ernie has been steadfast in defending him. But Gary's daughter, Heidi, and his son, Luke, have both been sort of lukewarm, pardon the pun there, in their defense of their father. The forward claims the original role-playing game largely excluded women, false, or portrayed them disrespectfully, false, and portrayed slavery not as a human tragedy, but as a commercial transaction. Well, it was both, actually. Wizards of the Woke, one ex-user said in response to the passage. Ex-owner Elon Musk weighed in, and they, of course, talked about his legendary tweet or post on X by now, telling them to burn in hell. And you can see Kyle Mann from the Babylon Bee has weighed in. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. This is all right. So, but I guess before I summarize here, we'll finish up because they mentioned Grums here. Mark Kern, former lead of World of Warcraft, recently weighed in on how the video game industry and entertainment at large cater to progressive views in their content in exchange for access to money. One consultant agency, there's good old Sweet Baby Inc., for instance, described itself as an inclusion-focused narrative and consultation company working towards diversifying and enriching the video games industry. And this is, of course, what the cultural consultants are for in the tabletop industry. They kind of do the exact same kind of work. They make sure all the hard edges are sanded off and everything is all nice and very left-leaning. There is a coordinated effort to insert diversity politics into games by all parties involved, to the detriment of the quality of the games themselves. Sweet Baby Inc.'s very public and self-published involvement is just the tip of the iceberg, Mark Kern, a.k.a. Grums, told Fox Digital. What does an article like this mean that's in Fox News? And more importantly, the parent article, which is in the New York Times. In a nutshell, it means we're winning. It doesn't mean we've won. As the great Winston Churchill said, it may not be the end, it may not be the beginning of the end, but it may perhaps be the end of the beginning. And I think there is sort of this tide turning effect that I'm starting to notice. I told you all that the tide would turn when normies would take a second look at this and didn't want to be associated with it anymore. You wouldn't want to be associated with some of the artwork that you see in the new books. It's just going to turn off people who are, agreeing to play D&D based on a set of expectations. And, when they open up the book, they're seeing quite a different thing in front of them. And, we have gone over at length some of the weird artwork in the new books, some of the cringy artwork. Along with X cards. I think this is going to lead some people to walk away from the game and the hobby in general. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. Because maybe there are good people, good gamers out there who would play if they were shown, games more like the original D&D, Castles and Crusades, Dragon Slayer, heck, even Shadow Dark. Instead, they get kind of a couple doses of new D&D. And it's just not fun. And it can't be fun. It's not a fun game to run anymore. And it's kind of a game that you wouldn't want to be caught playing. If you're if you have an ounce of testosterone in you and you're a guy, I'm not sure why you would want to be sitting with that book in front of you. At least the old books, there was some kind of cool artwork there. And you sort of had the compact that you were going to go out, rob things, and kill things, take the money, and go on an epic bender. Not so anymore. Now it's all about the festivals and night markets and fun. Going to learn at Strixhaven University, and maybe journey to the Radiant Citadel, where you can learn to become a stupid communist, which is fine if you want to do that, but no thanks. And I think there's a lot of normies out there whose eyes are being awakened. You wouldn't have seen this article a couple years ago. You would have only seen, if anything, glowing articles about how D&D's, the latest craze, it's expanding like gangbusters. But now they're starting to detail in front of you the crazy things. And, when you read these things in front of you as a normal person, wait a minute, somebody's going to stop the game because they're too sensitive that we can't discuss, let's say like drug use in a game. I'm sorry. They're going to start scratching their head. So, yes, overall, this is good news. It's just another brick in the wall, as I keep telling you. Stuff like this, none of these little things are going to end the tyranny of this horrible version of the game and the horrible people who are involved in it. But slowly over time, it's going to wear things down. And I think by next edition, there's going to be a change. The 5e kind of ecosystem or structure will be ready for change by then. It will be very long in the tooth. So there's going to be pressure to change. And I think there's also going to be a pressure to get rid of some of this stuff in D&D. Whether they listen, who knows? Maybe they'll just keep shooting themselves in the foot because, hey, they're stupid. And look, people will underwrite these sort of things incredibly. So if that's the case, there's always alternatives out there. I mentioned some of them earlier. I think, of course, Pathfinder has always been the traditional haven for people trying to get away from D&D, but I think they themselves are also starting to adopt, a lot of course, a lot of the same issues and problems that Wizards of the Coast is. So, like I said, hopefully, if they're good players and DMs, hopefully they don't leave and they discover better things. But who knows? Maybe it'll just drive more people away, and the hobby will be back to some semblance of normalcy. We shall see. All right, I want you guys all to have a happy new year. And like I said, I am working on a new video, which hopefully now I will get out maybe by the end of the week. We'll see. But that's all for now. You guys take care and have a great, great rest of your day. Peace.